I'm going to review how to go over these effects that we learned before in class, just as a nice refresher to make sure that you remember how to do all these. So first, we'll work on this guy as I move that over. So here we're working with where to find the gradient, how to work with the gradient in some aspects, and how to round these edges out. So first I want to go over here to my rectangle tool, hotkey M. And remember, if you click sort of on this arrow, you have these other options. We're going to go to the star. Now, as I click and drag, I'm not releasing my finger off of my mouse or trackpad. What I can do to change the number of sides that I want in a shape is either, remember, go up or down. So if I go down, I can get a perfect triangle. If I can go up, I can get as many points as I really want to. Also, if you hold down Option, you can get some really interesting effects as well. So maybe we'll do a little less here. Hold down Option, and they sort of become thicker and shorter. So lots of interesting shapes that you can work with very easily by just knowing these hotkeys. So this is good enough. I'm going to hold down Shift and try to make it as perfect as possible. And then I'm just going to fill it in with a black for right now. So remember, down here, you can swap your fill and your stroke. So right now I want it black, but I don't want the white. So I'm just going to come down here to none, and that is gone now. So if you come back over here, you can see that there's no stroke. All right, so let's make this a little bit bigger. What I'm doing, I'm clicking and dragging, holding down Shift, remember to keep it in proportion. And then when you're working with gradient, you need colors to pick from, but not this color. You want your swatches, okay? And you want to click and drag those apart, remember, because the gradient and those do not really like to be open at the same time together. They keep closing. So I just find it easier to just pluck them both off sort of this toolbar and just have some fun with it. So this is highlighted, so that means it's selected. So if I click on here, it will turn to this. Now, it didn't just because I had my stroke forward, which is always something good to know, that if you know something should change and it doesn't, it's just because the stroke is probably forward. So I'm going to switch this and then click off that and then make sure this is forward from now on so I don't have any more stroke issues. Okay, so again, I'm going to click off a color. I just want to work with my swatches here. I'm just going to pluck some colors. Okay, let's just see what will look good or semi-good. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, so I really don't want my black or white here. So remember, with these, all I have to do, I can click and drag to, see where they line up, or I can click and drag off. I can also click this, and you realize it's selected because it has a white cap, okay? So I can click that, and I can also click the trash can. So I'm going to drag this to the end, drag this sort of in the middle. That looks good to me. And you can also change the opacity. We can get into that later. And you can also change how it goes out. So that could be really interesting as well. All fun to play around with. Let me select that again, change that to linear. And then my next step is I want to round these edges out. And there's a very simple way to now do that with Illustrator CC. You come up here to your direct selection, hotkey A, which has a lot of great purposes. And one of them is really nice where all I have to do is click and drag in. We'll round it out as much as possible, only to a certain point, of course. But you can get as sharp or dull as you want with this, and that's a really nice understanding and easy to do now. And so that's how you're going to work with having your curves be more rounded and adding the gradient inside. So remember, again, we can move these very easily by sort of skipping over each other. We can move this to really work with the gradient. So inside of here, even, you can see that on the screen, it's changing slightly. Okay. So if you want a little bit more subtle variance, you come up here. If you want more direct, you push these guys around. And that's how we're going to work with that. So let me scoop this back in. Remember, click and drag, and once you see that bright blue bar right where my cursor is, that's when you know you can let go and it's going to join the group again.